Hey guys. So I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of overview and demonstration of timpani, names, technique, kind of philosophy, if you will. So here's a couple basics. This will be unedited. I'm kind of going off of a Vic Firth video too that I reviewed. I can send that to here in our chat. So first of all, timpani traditionally will go left to right, lowest to highest. I think in Germany is the only country where it kind of goes the other way, but traditionally left to right. I have two drums here. Usually you'll have 2 to 4 to 5 sometimes, if not 6 for some bigger things. But you'll have low to high. So lowest range, each drum has a range on it. The lower drums will go lower. The larger drums will go lower, the smaller drums will sound higher. So this drum, for instance, has a range from here to large range, but you have a specific sweet spot in each timpani drum where you don't want to go too low or else it won't sound as good as if you go to the lowest drum, and you don't want to push the middle drums to the highest they can go because then you can rely on the highest one, if that makes sense. So for timpani technique, there are 3 different kinds of grips. There's the French grip, the American grip, and the German grip. So the French grip is with your thumbs up and down, like this. The German grip is most like a snare drum playing technique. And then your American grip, which is a combination of both. So once more, French, German, and your American technique, which is a combination of both. Now, in terms of playing, when you are playing with any technique, you never want to impede the stick whatsoever of its natural ability to rebound when you throw the mallet into the drum. It naturally rebounds, much like a basketball. When you bounce it, it rebounds automatically. You don't need to force a basketball into the ground. Same way with technique with timpani. When you play, you don't want to ever stop the stick like you have to ever force, especially for louder dynamics such as forte, double forte. There's never going to be a strike. It will always be a rebound for the different technique, for the different dynamics. Much like that. There are different types of sticks. The larger, more puffy sticks are going to be, the mallets are going to be for rolls and for more resonant and longer notes, such as a whole note that needs to ring out, a half note that needs to ring out, or a long roll. And then you have other mallets that can be smaller, can even be made of cork or wood, and can be for much more staccato passages, and can be much more, for 16th notes and stuff like. Versus these mallets would be much more for passages such as that. So for a lot of timpani playing, when you have notes one after the other, you will dampen. And what dampening looks like is anytime you play a note on one of the drums, when you play the next note, you will oftentimes dampen, unless there's no time, such as 16th note passages where you go. But if you often have notes that go, you will dampen the other drum when you play the next drum. You never want to make noise when you dampen. And you notice how my technique changed too. When I went to dampen, I struck instead of let it rebound. So it's light. I prefer the American technique, such as this. Not the French technique or the German technique, but I prefer because the stick rebounds. So for each one of the drums, too, there is a sweet spot that you need to play on. If you play too close to the edge, you'll have a thinner sound that doesn't speak or sing as well, such as this. If you play too close to the center, you'll have a thudding, sort of dead sound. So you're too thin, too dead. It's especially bad. The sort of general rule, I would say, is to make a fist, put your fist on the edge of the drum, and then to play at the edge of your fist, usually about a fist's length in. So take a fist, put it on, and then play. That's usually best to get the resonance out of the drum. And the smaller the drum gets, to your right, the smaller the drum gets, the further in you can come. If it's a much smaller timpani drum, you don't still need to make a fist because it might be closer to the center. Whereas with a deeper drum, you might want to bring it out just a little bit. But for a general rule, you always want to make sure your playing position is about a quarter of a mallet or a fist length inwards. Now, I have gone over so far timpani positioning, placement, ranges of drums. The lower and larger the drum is, the lower it's going to be. And the higher and the smaller the drum is, the higher it's going to be as well. And I've gone over timpani technique, French grip, American grip, and German grip. And then the different ways of letting the stick rebound. I've gone over different kinds of mallets. The smaller and denser the mallet is, that's for passages that are much quicker. And then the more puffy mallets are for passages that can be more rolls. And then there are some mallets in the middle that can be used when a roll turns into something quicker, or there's eighth notes after a roll. You can use a mallet that speaks a little bit better, that could be a little bit puffier. It is really up to the player. What I would recommend for timpani technique too is practice one hand at a time. Pick a technique that suits you. If you have French technique, if you have American technique, or if you have German technique, practice over and over one hand at a time in that proper playing position. until you can get an even and consistent sound across the board without any change throughout. Maybe you do 8 on each hand or something such as this. Always reset your technique before each hit. And then what I would also do then after that is add them both together and keep that consistent. Do your best to stay within your technique that you choose, such as French, German, or American, and play with each one rebounding once you add them together, such as this. Now, last thing would be tuning in a piece. These can tune to any pitch. So, usually a student in any elementary through high school band will have only a couple of pitches they'll need to use in a piece that they're playing, such as B flat, E flat, C, and F. So you would tune B flat, C, E flat, and F if you can, or you would switch between E flat and F at the top. You can also play those with 2 drums and switch between B flat and C and E flat and F. It just depends upon the abilities of your students. If your student has a good ear, they will be able to match the pitches to what they need to. There are also gauges on the side of every single timpani drum, which you can set and tune to make sure you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and then in between are the flats and sharps. And those are tuned by the pedals at the bottom. There are pedals on each timpani that change the pitch of the instrument. And most pieces, you can set the pitches and the student can play. Try to get them to set their own pitches or use an app and a tuner. The further up you go into wind ensembles and stuff, the more pitch changes need to happen, and that comes with practice and time. If a student has to change from C and F to suddenly B natural and D sharp or whatever, if there's a key change in the music, if it goes from B flat then to F, or if it goes from B flat then suddenly to a different key, C to B natural, or C to C sharp. Those pitches, you'll be able to use the gauges traditionally. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. There's so much to know about so many percussion instruments. It's really just takes lots of time and practice and a good ear to be able to do this. But I'm in no way any professional, and we percussionists get the chance to play many different instruments, and so we kind of learn over time. But these are great resources for your students to learn, not to just jump on a timpani drum and just play like they're playing a snare drum or like they're playing anything else. For them to learn the proper technique is to be able to sustain their bodies from injury and also sustain the life of your instruments as well, if kids can play properly. And that goes for every instrument. The snare drum head, the bars on any mallet instrument as well can chip, and the chords can fray if students are just pounding away at them. So yeah, if you have any other questions, I would love to answer them. And yes, teaching with Nathan.